And warm welcome to everybody who's here. Welcome to our members of the public and our staff. And let's start with apologies. We've got apologies from Councillor Casey, who's healing really well from what we hear, Councillor Fletcher Sayers and Member James Brown for absence. And we've got Councillor Collins, Councillor Quacks and Councillor Wayne Walker for lateness. So I'm happy to move those.
Second.
If Councillor Simpson. Good, nice, very nice head, Leslie, I've noticed today. Very good. Councillor Simpson, nice. Second.
She's
all those in
growing it
favour,
out.
please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Declarations of interest. I'll just remind people that if anything comes up where you need to declare any conflicts, please let me know. Confirmation of minutes of the 14th of February. I'm happy to move those. Councillor Filipaina, second. No comments. Oh, Councillor Coe. Did you wish to comment?
No, second.
Oh, Councillor Filipaina beat you to it. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried.
Starting gates gone.
Petitions, none have been received. Now, I'll talk about public input and extraordinary business now so that people have a bit of a sense of what to expect. We have got extraordinary business probably at about 10:30. We thought that would allow everybody time to be here. And then post extraordinary business, the staff are going to do a media briefing downstairs. So at 10:30 we will do extraordinary business on our weather events, and just overnight more work has been done, and I think it would be good to have everyone updated and also to do it in public. I think obviously there's a lot of interest in this issue. So going back to public input, we're going to deal with invite Angus DeLanga and Will Mackenzie first. We're going to then do the River Group, and then we've got Isabel Gunn and the Sustainable Future Collective. We'll do those three and then take Mark Roach as part of the UNESCO City of Music at the beginning of the actual item, which is our first official business item. And we'll have Jenna Wooten either straight after public input or post extraordinary business, depending on just how time goes. So it is a full agenda. Members, I'd appreciate focus on questions, and hopefully we'll get through with good decisions made. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Angus and Will on the sports field capacity issue. Warm welcome. And sorry for there's been a bit of toing and froing, Angus, on the issue. So it's 5 minutes for the presentation. Right, we're in your hands.
Thank you, councillors, and good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, it's Angus DeLange, I'm told. I just asked Angus because I couldn't pronounce it either after 2 years. So. You'll have before you a three-page presentation, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Felds Park, of which Angus is a member. Have you got that three-pager there?
Yes. Do.
Great,
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Should have that in front of me.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Sports Field Capacity Development Program since its inception, and it started in Term 1 of Council. So there's a three-page presentation. Page 1 is about Term 1, page 2 is about Term 2, and page 3 is about Term 3. And I'll just flick through some of this, and obviously the third page will be the most important, but I think it's very relevant to get the background to this. And you'll see there I've listed the meeting dates that were held for the relevant forums and committees back in Term 1 and Term 2. I've rounded numbers up to the nearest 100, and I look forward to any questions. As you see there, back in the 5th of May 2011, there was a report to the Recreation and Heritage Forum about the sports field issue. And then in September 2011, there was a further detailed report and a recommendation. And if you see there on line 3, it these are quotes from those reports. There was a region-wide demand for 7,800 field hours, comprising 2,100 for competition and 5,700 for midweek training. So that's an awful lot of midweek training hours compared to competition. It was a ratio of 2.8. Now, I raised this at the time, but that would have meant that all football teams and all codes would have been training for 2.8 times as long as they were playing, and that was clearly incorrect. And it turns out that the error was caused by assuming that each team needed a whole field to train on, when in fact teams only need half a field. So on to line 6, the assessed capacity was 8,500, so the region-wide surplus was 700. However, those figures were then adjusted in the longer report, which is what it was based on, for code allocation, travel time and closures, which extended the shortfall from 700 plus to minus 1,700, and then a projection 10 years ahead was further increased to 3,000. So we've gone from a 700-hour surplus to a 3,000-hour projected deficit. That 3,000 hours became the headline figure, and the committee voted to spend $10 million a year to address that projected 3,000-hour shortfall. Now on to line 16, councils didn't receive this, but later in the report there was options for what to do about the problem, and the option of upgrading all council-owned fields from soil to sand so they could take 18 hours was considered. That would result in a 4,300-hour surplus, and by 2021 that would have dropped to 1,900. So in spite of that obvious option of simply sand covering council fields, it was recommended to build 20 artificial fields at a cost of $40 million. So on to line 21, in 2012, the program was updated, and if you see there on line 22, there was a recommendation for 37 artificial fields, even though it was clear that it was able to be satisfied by improving grass. It's been asked of Council how exactly the officers got to a 37 artificial field recommendation, but that information hasn't been provided. So I'll turn over the page and go on to the next term of council, 2014. A presentation was made to the Recreation and Sport Committee about the issue of overestimation of training and the adjustments. If you look down to line 29, you'll see that the overall demand was 6,800, down from 7,800 in the previous report, due to a more accurate reflection of training demand. And so the figure of 2.8 dropped down to 1.8, so a very significant drop. The assessed playing capacity was 8,800, so there was a region-wide surplus of 2,000 hours. However, that figure was then adjusted and then predicted 10 years ahead, which resulted in a negative 1,700-hour weekly shortfall predicted, and an estimate of spending $99 million required to address that. Along to line 41, the committee received another presentation about this matter. However, the committee voted to accept the longer report and approve the spending. Now on to line 44. An expert witness, Chris Triggs, who's a professor of statistics at Auckland University, has looked into the longer reports, and you'll see there on line 48 is his conclusion about aspects of them. He says that at a value of 1.8, there was a surplus of supply over demand of 2,100 hours, or 31% of current demand, and at the current rate, that surplus would last for 10 years unless growth was 2.77% or greater. So based on Professor Triggs' recommendation or assessment, you wouldn't have to spend any capital money on fields and you still have a surplus in 10 years. However, the recommendation from officers was to spend $100 million. So I'll just go on to the last page. And on this page, we'll look at the supply and demand in terms of what size population would generate the demand to use up all the fields that Auckland has at 20 hours a week if they were all sand carpeted. And if you see there on line 53, I've highlighted 4.4 field hours for every 1,000 people. That's a very important number because you can work out everything from that. And what that means is for every 227 residents in Auckland, you need 1 field hour. If you look across the table, you'll see that all the local boards are listed there. The number of full field equivalent fields they have is listed. And the next line is was their population in 2013. And then you'll see the number of fields multiplied by those multipliers, which will tell you that there's a very significant surplus if all fields are sand carpeted in Auckland. And whilst the unitary plan's come into force, it does enable growth, but it also, in a way, caps growth in the existing urban area. There'll be about a 50% increase in population in the existing urban area. However, the number of sports fields we have, if they're all sand carpeted, can very comfortably accommodate that demand. So just in conclusion, line 59, there is no evidence that any council officer or any council consultant with the necessary qualification, a degree in statistics or equivalent, was involved with the preparation of or has peer reviewed or examined council's assessment of supply and demand for sports fields. REMU was approached to provide suitably qualified input, and I list their response there. They say at line 60 that REMU has not been involved in the matter to date. And then on line 61, it says, we have been advised by our colleagues in Parks that an internal review of the model commissioned by Auckland Council is not possible. If you have any further questions, please refer them to the General Manager of Parks, Sport and Recreation. I've emailed the manager and they've received no response to date. In line 62 and final, given that this program involves $10 million of expenditure per year, it appears appropriate that the 2011 and 2014 reports are reviewed by REMU in the near future, and that an entirely new assessment of supply and demand for sports fields in Auckland is be prepared in 2017 by suitably qualified and experienced consultant with REMU's input, or by REMU to inform the Environment and Community Committees and the local board's policy and expenditure decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very, very clear presentation. We might take a couple of questions, but I think this is one that we could sort of dive down deeply into. I'm going to suggest that this is one that we do pick up and talk to our senior staff involved. And when we look at the Auckland Plan refresh and the resetting of the dial about what we're expecting for the next 10 or 20 years in our city, it's a very good opportunity for us to do this. So now there was a question, sorry, was it you, Councillor Simpson and Councillor Walker? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, thank you for this. It's very interesting. Have you looked at the OPEX cost between sand carpeting fields and artificial, i.e. is it more cost effective for council to put artificial in the long term based on OPEX or not? Have you looked at that?
Back in 2011, it appeared in some reports that it was more effective to put an artificial, but close examination revealed that it's not. The capital expense is around $400,000 to $500,000 for a sand field with lights, around $2 million for an artificial. However, the ongoing costs for sand are low if it's done correctly and it's done in a way that sustains the surface. Research has been done that shows that a sand carpet can be sustained almost indefinitely, so there's no ongoing cost other than the $20,000 or $30,000 annual maintenance. I can provide some details that show that it's very, very much more effective to do sand carpet.
And a supplementary, if I may, and the ongoing use. I thought there was more use available for play on an artificial.
Yes, you can get up to 40 hours a week on an artificial, but you can get 20 hours a week on a sand carpet. Sand carpets cost way more than half as much. And also a hybrid surface, which looks like grass but has artificial fibres in it, can get 35 hours a week. So that's a very good option as well.
So I'd be keen on some of that. And my final question is just a staffing one. When did you email the manager of, when did you email the General Manager of Parks, Sport and Rec?
I think that was Thursday.
So just from a timing issue, that's all.
We can follow that up. So just when you say sand carpeting costs a lot more than half that.
A lot less than half, sorry.
Exactly, yeah, I just think, so it's a much better deal.
Yes, is a much better deal, yeah.
It's important.
And also it doesn't have the adverse effects in the environment of footpaths and fences and artificial surface.
Oh, that's well understood. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, my question was just around that last point around adverse effects. Quite obviously, these hard surface areas are bad news in terms of impermeability.
No, actually, Councillor Walker, I have to correct you. They are permeable, so the water flows straight through them.
Through the hard surface?
Well, it's not hard.
It's not hard?
No.
Okay, well, let's leave that. Certainly there are adverse effects around uses that we associate with grass.